My name is Suzanne Hume. I am the director of CleanEarthForKids.org, a nonprofit. And I'm so proud to have some youth board members here from CleanEarthForKids.org and Mrs. Jamie Washington, our social justice commissioner. So I'll start with Janice. So Janice, would you like to start?
Of course. Hey everyone, I'm Janice, Water is Life, and I'm on Team 4, which is trying to protect clean water and keep oceans healthy, and depends on keeping pollution out of our streams and rivers, and so that wetlands can filter our water, and we overall protect the water. So in Cleaner for Kids, we have 6 teams. Team 1 is climate action plans for cities and schools, while also doing renewable energy and sustainability. Team 2 is protecting public lands, forests, gardens, plants, and wildlife. Team 3 is no idling and protecting clean air to keep our lungs healthy. Team 4 is protecting our drinking water and oceans from pipeline leaks, oil spills, fracking, and protecting wetlands, streams, rivers, and lakes. Team 5 works on protecting children, workers, farm workers, and communities from toxic pesticides and the installation of synthetic turf. Team 6 works on zero waste and reducing plastics. So at Clean Up for Kids, we offer many different types of community service. If you are a student watching this, you can earn community service by writing 2 pages of notes based on this webinar with a short summary of what you learned. You can also design and work on projects or apply to do an internship with us. For more information, go to cleanearthforkids.org. At Clean Earth for Kids, we also have many K-12 contests for art, music, writing, presentations, and STEM contests. We also have challenges, such as the Call It Out Challenge, by making a video to call out pollution of our air, our water, or our public lands. We must call out these cuts or rollbacks of environmental protections. We need to use our voices through art, music, writing, and projects to call it out. Tonight's panel discussion is going to be on fossil fuels, pipelines, and oil spills. We will discuss a few of the 100 rollbacks of protections for health, our environment, and our future. You can check our website, cleanerforkids.org, for information, resources, curriculum, and petitions. And please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Thank you, Janice. Hi, everyone. My name is Darren, and I co-lead Team 5, which is working to stop toxic pesticides and other chemicals, including lead, heavy metals, PFAs, and also synthetic turf. On cleanerforkids.org, we have the article by the New York Times, which gives information about the 100 rollbacks, and they're numbered 1 to 100. So if we reference numbers in this webinar, just know we are referencing the number from the New York Times article. We'd also like to say thank you to Harvard Law School and Columbia University's Sabin Center for their deregulation trackers. They're both frequently updated and easy to navigate, so if you're ever curious about these rollbacks, those are 2 very important resources to check out. These rollbacks are cutting or reducing the protections we have for the air we breathe, the water we drink, and our lands. Many of them have been completed, and many others are still in progress. Our drinking water, wetlands, oceans, public lands, and national parks are all in trouble because of the Trump administration and their taking away of these protections. We at cleanerforkids.org and many organizations like the Sierra Club, Earth Justice, NRDC, Food and Water Watch, and Fossil Free California are working to protect these invaluable resources and ecosystems by opposing these rollbacks. Please join us in our fight by donating your time to these initiatives. The health of our people and our future depends on clean, safe air, water, and land. Janice, thank you for all the work you have done on pipelines and water. What is your concern about pipelines?
So the concern is the fact that pipeline leaks and oil spills are still happening to this day. Oh, sorry everyone. I was muted. So the concern is the fact that pipeline leaks and oil spills are still happening to this day. Oil and gasoline are toxic chemicals. The U.S. has over 70 70,000 miles of crude oil pipelines. That is enough to almost circle the world 3 times.
Wow, that's a lot of pipelines. How old are they?
Great question. Almost half of these pipelines are over 50 years old, and they corrode or break down as they get older from the oil inside and the weather outside. From 2010 to 2017, almost 9 million gallons of crude oil spilled from pipelines in the US. That's over 3,500 gallons every day.
Can you explain what happens to this oil when it gets into the water and talk about one of the spills?
Of course. It's really hard to contain oil once it gets into any body of water. In 2010, 843,000 gallons of crude oil leaked into the Kalamazoo River in Michigan. It was one of the largest oil spills in U.S. history. The river to this day is still contaminated. Oil is toxic, so our water is affected from these leaks and spills. People and animals are affected by these leaks and spills, and our land is affected by these leaks and spills. Oil in water hurts marine birds, sea turtles, fish, and mammals like sea otters. Oil destroys their insulating ability or their way they keep their fur warm. Birds spend a lot of time keeping their feathers clean so they are waterproof and airtight. This keeps them warm. When oil gets on their feathers, they can't repel or keep water off, and the birds get too cold. Then the animals and birds try to clean the oil off themselves, getting it in their mouths, and then they get really sick because of it.
That's so unfortunate. There are so many reasons why fossil fuels should not be used, and this is definitely one of the bigger ones. Would you like to talk about the rollbacks?
Yeah, of course. So the rollback the rollback 30 in the New York Times list was done by the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, and takes away or resigns the water pollution regulations or rules for fracking on federal and Indian lands. Jumping to Rollback 30, which moved the permitting process for certain projects that cross international borders, such as oil pipelines, to the office of the president from the State Department, exempting them from environmental review. The Trump administration approved the Dakota Access Pipeline, or DAPL. This pipeline was approved by Mr. Trump as soon as he got into office. A federal judge on July 6th ruled it can't continue and also ordered the pipeline to be emptied of oil until an environmental review process is done. This Tuesday, the U.S. Court of Appeals delayed the first judge's order for at least a week so the pipeline lawyers can appeal and ask the court to revise the ruling or reverse the ruling.
I know groups like Earth Justice are talking to the court about DAPL. Let's hope they can get the court to agree and shut down the pipeline. We at cleanearthforkids.org were invited to a press conference with California Congressman Mike Levin, who co-sponsored a bill to protect Californians from offshore drilling, H.R. 1941, which blocks new offshore drilling along the Atlantic and Pacific coastlines and which passed the House today. The bill was one of the first pieces of legislation that Representative Levin co-sponsored as a member of Congress. He also co-sponsored H.R. 1146 that repeals a provision that Republicans snuck into their GOP that clears the way for oil and gas drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska. Can you please tell us about the rollback about offshore drilling?
Yes. Offshore drilling is a bad idea. The Department of the Interior proposed Rollback 40, which is a proposition of opening most of America's coastal waters to offshore oil and gas drilling. but delayed the plan after a federal judge ruled that Mr. Trump's reversal of the Obama-era ban on drilling in the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans was unlawful, which would have opened most of America's coastal waters to offshore oil and gas drilling. This would be bad for us and wildlife since pipelines and drilling platforms leak. This rollback was delayed after the judge ruled it was against the law.
We would like everyone to know that there is a petition to stop offshore drilling. You can find it at our website, cleanearthforkids.org, and I'll also put it in the chat.
Thank you. Then there is Rollback 42, which is the proposed revising regulations on offshore oil and gas exploration by floating vessels in the Arctic that were developed after a 2013 accident. The Interior Department previously said it was considered full recession or revision of this rule by the Department of the Interior, which would allow offshore oil and gas exploration by ships in the Arctic. The existing rules were put in place after a 2013 accident, like I said, and other failures. We can't risk this fragile part of the world.
I agree. We need to stop hurting nature to get oil. We need to focus on renewable energy instead of fossil fuels. What about the Keystone XL Pipeline?
So that is Rollback 47, and it's weakened the National Environmental Policy Act, one of the country's most significant environmental laws. So, as I said, Rollback 47 was when the Trump administration approved the Keystone XL Pipeline. Then a federal judge blocked it because an environmental review hadn't been done. Instead of doing the required environmental rule, the pipeline company, TC Energy, appealed to the Supreme Court, who just upheld the ruling on July 6 that Keystone XL can't use Nationwide Permit 12 to cross over waterways. Darren, could you by chance tell us about the nationwide permits?
Yes, Denise. So going off of nationwide permits, they are also known as NWPs, and they are for utility ones, there are 52 types of NWPs. The 12th one is for utility lines and waters controlled by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they've been used since the mid-1970s, and their purpose is to streamline small projects, and they are used for projects with little to no environmental impact. And going off of environment, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, keep going, sorry.
That's okay. Going off of environmental impact, there are things called environmental impact statements, and those are required by the NEPA or the National Environmental Policy Act. And those are basically statements of the impact of a proposed project on the surrounding environment. And those are used to make decisions about a project. So they will keep that in mind before continuing the project.
Could you tell everyone why streamlining is not a good thing when it comes to environmental review, and why skipping an environmental impact statement is a bad idea?
Yes. So in 2012, the NWP 12, which I talked about earlier, started to be used for major oil and gas pipelines to streamline construction. Streamlining is another way of saying making something go faster by making it easier. So for pipelines, it means reduced or no public comment, environmental impact studies, and things like that. Environmental groups have argued that NWP 12 was not meant for environmentally risky projects like DAPL and Keystone XL because there's not a complete environmental review as required by the NEPA. And that's why part of why the current administration wants to roll back NEPA. Jamie will talk about that later on. So going back to fossil fuels, there are a lot of reasons why fossil fuels are helpful. There are 3 studies done by USC, Harvard, and Johns Hopkins that detail the harm on human health. Basically, fossil fuels are what we use for energy besides renewable energy sources. And there's a lot of different chemicals that are harmful to human health in them. Fossil fuels are coal, crude oil, and natural gas, as well as kerosene and gasoline. And they're the primary contributors to climate change. So there's a lot of different toxins in these fossil fuels. For example, coal has mercury, which is corrosive to the skin, eyes, and gastrointestinal tract, and this damage can be fatal. Recently, there's been a rollback which withdrew the legal justification for a rule that limited mercury emissions from coal power plants. And going off of that, there are 28 other air pollution and extraction/drilling related rollbacks that are already completed, and there are many more in process to roll back all these protections because we need these protections for human health. Another thing from coal is sulfur dioxide, which causes inflammation and irritation of the respiratory system, and then also particulate matter, which can cause heart attacks, respiratory problems, and decreased lung function. Then there are vehicle emissions, which are basically the oil and natural gas. So cars, trucks, and boats can release nitrogen oxide, which can cause respiratory diseases, and then carbon monoxide, which we all know as a poison. It reduces the oxygen traveling into bloodstream, so that can lead you to faint or die. And then there are also even toxins from the oil and gas wells and the processing facilities. So not even when they're used, but when they're being extracted and processed, they can expose humans to harmful toxins such as benzene, which is linked to childhood leukemia and blood disorders, and formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen, and those two are also found in some pesticides. So one way we can combat fossil fuels is to combat the fossil fuel industry. So one way we can do this is divestment. So divestment is important for several reasons. First of all, for the stigma of it. So investing gives these companies a social license to operate, and a social license to operate basically is a facade of legitimacy that enables them to keep expanding operations at a time of climate crisis and to stifle the demands for justice of those communities who live on the front line of their destructive polluting operations. So by saying like, hey, like we have all of these organizations that are still invested in our company, it basically just gives them like a green light and makes it so it's less stigmatized. But if we divest from these companies, it can give them more stigma. If companies are known to be for being immoral due to divestment, they may not attract as many workers, and as a result, it can increase the cost of labor, so it harms them financially. Investing in fossil fuels is also risky for investors in the planet. For investors, because if we continue using fossil fuels at the rate that we are, it is estimated that it all will be depleted by 2060. So these investments won't be turning a profit for that much longer. And in fact, they aren't really turning a profit, as we'll get into later. It's also risky for the planet because if we don't change our energy sources, climate change will cause irreversible damage by the year 2030. In fact, we need to keep 80% of fossil fuels in the ground that we have today in order to protect our planet and save it from irreversible damage. Conversely, investment in renewable energy is good for the planet and for investors. Renewable energy is the alternative to fossil fuels, which will cause reversible climate change. So if we can make the switch, we can save our planet. Divestment campaigns don't directly reduce share prices, and if they do, it might be temporary. As well as boycotts, they have temporary effects on share prices. But if we can get them to have less business, then that will affect their share and their value as a company. So if we make renewable energy more accessible and affordable, it will convert consumers to that form of energy, and we can do this by investing in those companies and giving them capital to expand. Renewable energy is the cheapest source of new power generation for more than 2/3 of the world and has no fuel costs. It's also a better return on investment in the US and many other countries. In the US, fossil fuels have a 97.2% return on investment over 5 years as compared with renewable energy, which is 200.3%. And in countries like Germany and France, the return on investment for fossil fuels is negative 20.7%. So it's not even a smart way to invest in the first place. You're losing money versus 178.2% in renewable energy. And that was done by a study. It was found in a study by the Imperial College London and the International Energy Agency. I will put a link in the chat to the list of people who have divested and how much. Those include the University of California, I believe, and the London Health Institute or something like that. There's a lot of famous companies and also individuals like Leonardo DiCaprio. So there have been billions that have been divested from these fossil fuel companies. And so if you're curious, you can check out this link.
Okay, and I would thank you so much. And so Darren, of course, our applied math student who also is does our videos and film and so knowledgeable about so many things. Thank you so much for that. And Janice, all of the important information that you're sharing, doing such a great job leading Team 4 for the Youth Board. Just tremendous information. So I wanted to make a comment, Darren, about divestment. And so I have been a teacher for decades. And so it's very important to me that CalSTRS, my pension, divest from fossil fuels. As you said, it is a lose, lose, lose all the way around thing when CalSTRS, right, the pension for teachers, and also CalPERS, California Public Employees, are invested in something that directly hurts our children's lungs, public health, our water. And you guys have just done an amazing job showing all of the important things that we need to be aware of. And now with these rollbacks, it's even more and more important for CalSTRS to divest, and other universities and businesses and organizations that are truly, care about our children and public health and our water. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for the numbers and all the data and the statistics. You guys work so incredibly hard to get these panel discussions ready, and that should be absolutely recognized, which I know it is. Again, it was fantastic to have Columbia University on the call last week and have Harvard watch and shout you out and tweet about all the important things. I know. On Twitter, I'm still speechless about, wow. So that was really important to have a great endorsement from Harvard Law School. And, and thank you again to Harvard and to Columbia, to Yale for your fabulous climate connections, the New York Times for putting the 100 rollbacks in the first place, and all of the people working so hard. Darren mentioned some of those. We were really excited to connect with Earth Justice over Twitter and others. So if you are on Twitter, please follow us on cleanearthforkids.org. We're so excited to connect with you and collaborate. And again, shout out to all of our amazing youth. Not everybody's on tonight. They might have summer school tests or whatever they have. So, and we are absolutely supportive of that. I just wanted to give a big shout out to these guys. And we're missing Leanna, of course. Those of you who are with us every time, you're thinking, where is Leanna? So Leanna's fine. Leanna's just fine. And thank you again, Darren, for picking up, and Janice for picking up, and for picking up for Kevin as well, and others. So we are about to hear from our Social Justice Commissioner, Mrs. Jamie Washington. So we're excited about that. So to you, Jamie.
Well, thank you very much, Suzanne, for that introduction. I do want to compliment Janice and Darren for showing those very moving slides of animals whose fur and feathers were heavily coated with crude oil in our oceans and bodies of water. NEPA is the one law that I want to talk about that directly affects what happens to those animals. Recently, the Trump administration finalized its proposal to gut the National Environment Protection Act. Now, this does affect Black and Brown communities. When the Trump administration decided to gut NEPA or NEPA, it took away the right for community members to voice their concerns and opinions about companies who are going to build infrastructure projects and introduce pollutants into their clean communities. Now that the Trump administration has put that into place, the people in the disadvantaged communities, the brown and Black communities, no longer have a voice. What used to happen, can we go back to the other slide, please? The previous slide? Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, the date that NEPA was dismantled is recent. It happened July 15th, 2020. And as I said, it did take away the safeguards. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. Now, how did this happen? Well, the political process. Money talks. Companies are rich. And as Suzanne mentioned, when you have pension plans and you own stocks and certain mutual funds, those companies make a lot of money. So those companies pay lobbyists who do visit senators and they visit House of Representative members that you see on the news, and they lobby very hard to have their projects placed in those underserved communities. Now that NEPA has been gutted, they are going to bypass the process where they notify the community in the first place. And when you don't notify them, they don't have a voice. They can't tell you what the impact on their communities will be. They can't tell you how it will pollute their air or their water or their soil. So the voice of people like you and I and those that are disadvantaged has been taken away. Now, that is not the end of it. We have an Earth Justice attorney named Kristen Boyles. She is going to take action. She is going to file a lawsuit to protect the people whose voices will be taken away. And that's about all I wanted to say about NEPA. Things will change.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So important to hear about NEPA again. And we will continue to update on this to see, to talk about the lawsuits and how things are progressing. NEPA being the bedrock, the foundational environmental law. And as you guys have said, through these 100 rollbacks, it's chipping away at this environmental protection. And then NEPA is like that foundation that's just, whoop, pulling it back. And we are beyond shocked and outraged that this is happening. So thank you so much for that and talking with us about this. And we're excited to hear next week from you again, Jamie, about what's going on with NEPA. And then we'll hear, from Janice and Darren and everybody about, the latest as well, because it's so important to stay on top of it, of what's going on with these rollbacks for sure. Mm-hmm. So we can hear right now. Let's listen to Catherine. Catherine, would you like to talk to us about endangered species?
Yes, sure. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but I'm going to first introduce myself. My name is Catherine. I am a part of Team 2, which involves public lands, forests, gardens, plants, and wildlife. We'll be planting trees and gardens and protecting public lands, parks, forests, and wildlife. Thank you to CARB, California Air Resources Board, for the grant to plant trees, put no idling signs that children created near schools, do radio commercials, purchase science equipment, and help us educate students and communities. Tonight, I will be talking about the Endangered Species Act, and I will be sharing some slides with you all. So to share, do I hit share? Sorry, it's my first time. Okay, great. So I'm gonna share my screen.
There you go. So hit the present button too, up at the upper right. Do you see where it says present, Catherine? Yeah, there you go. Great job.
Okay, let me begin. So I will be presenting an article from Earth Justice. It is called Wildlife We Are Fighting For. It is about I will be sharing 15 out of hundreds of species Earth Justice has gone to court to protest. And a quote that I really loved that I found, states that the Endangered Species Act is a statement of policy that says we'll be managing species based on science, not on prejudices or mythologies. This is by Tim Presso. Okay. So the first one is the palilla. It is a yellow little bird. And it is a small bird, part of the honey creeper family. It lives between the elevations of 7,000 and 10,000 feet in Maua Kea on the Big Island of Hawaii. There are only around 1,000 palila left in the wild today. And as you can see to the right, that is how it looks like. Okay, the second one is the killer whale. They're also known as pods or orcas. They have one of the most complex social systems in marine animals. They were hunted in the 16th and 70s because of SeaWorld and live captures. The second decline was in the 80s, where there were not enough species to reproduce because of the live captures. And today, these species are starving. They're at the top of the food chain, so which means they ingest toxic contamination from themselves or to their prey. Earth Justice has been trying for many years to force better management off runoffs, especially in urban areas. Urban Justice won a case that found low impact developments such as green roofs and rain barrels to avoid toxic runoff. As of last year in August, there are only 73 killer whales left in the wild. Okay, moving on to the third one, it's wild salmon, also known as king salmon, and another one was coho and sockeye. These are three different species of wild salmon. Salmon are extraordinary creatures that live in both saltwater and freshwater. They have nature's best sense of direction. In the North Pacific West, the Columbia River Basin was once among the greatest salmon producing rivers in the world, but all remaining Snake River salmon are facing extinction because of 4 aging dams in their way to reaching their pristine natal cold water streams in central Idaho and beyond. For the fourth one, we have the Marbelled Marillet. It's a rare bird. They are going extinct because their nests are being destroyed because of logging. In 1992, Earth Justice gained endangered species protection for birds. They continue to defend old growth forests, and they rely on timber industry interests, which is why it is so important to end logging. Moving on to the fifth one, we have the bowhead whale. Earth Justice has successfully fought for years to prevent drilling in the Arctic Ocean, vital habitat for endangered bowhead whales, and they are one of the Earth's oldest living mammals. The next species is staghorn and eelcorn corals. Not long ago, these were the main reef building coral species in the Caribbean. Earth Justice won a lawsuit in 2014 to better protect the endangered coral by protecting the fish they rely on, the hardworking parrotfish. So as you can see, that's the coral. Okay, the next one is the wolverine. Wolverines are so cute. They are the largest land-dwelling mammal of the weasel family. Once roamed across northern tier of the United States as far as south of New Mexico and the Rockies and Southern California in the Sierra Nevada range. For more than 2 decades, Earth Justice has been working to establish protections, not only for the species, but also for the integrated ecosystems that sustain their prey and habitat. Alrighty, next we have the California sea otter. As with the Wolverine, the fur trade nearly turned every lost otter into luxury winter wear, which is very sad. In 1938, sea otters were thought to be extinct until a small colony was discovered near Big Sur. Since then, it's been a slow, uncertain recovery. The reason why these otters are going extinct is because of oil spills and commercial fishing gear, as well as oil spills and other human activities. The ninth one is the Yellowstone grizzly bear. I will also be talking more about this one. So we have good news with the Trump administration that I'll be mentioning later, but they are one of the last strongholds for grizzly bears. So basically, Earth Justice attorneys were in court this month to defend endangered species and protect the bears, and there's really good news on this. The next one is the gray wolf. In 1973, gray wolves became one of the first animals to disappear on the endangered species list. Earth Justice has gone to court on behalf of wolves throughout the country. The next one is the Florida panther. The panther's last remaining territory on Earth is in South Florida. Earlier this year, we filed a lawsuit to ensure these magnificent creatures can survive. And the main cause of death to Florida panthers is nearly 85% are killed on the roadways. The 12th one is the North Atlantic right whale. Every single death is a threat to the species' survival. Last year, Earthjustice won a lawsuit to bar the use of entangling nests in their habitat. Entanglement in fishing gear and is a leading threat to whales. Scientists believe there's only 300 to 400 of these whales left in the wild, and that's why it's very important to protect these whales. The next one is the U-Ha. It's a Hawaiian petrel. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a really cute little bird. Let's see. So once plentiful throughout the Hawaiian Islands, they're colliding with human development. So because of human activity, they are dying. They're killed when they fly into power lines that become disoriented from bright streetlights. And Earthjustice is working to change that. Next, we have the bald eagle. So the bald eagle has been dying due to pesticides, but thanks to the ESA and other safeguards, the bald eagle habitat is, so basically they banned the pesticide DDT nationwide. So now there are around 100,000 bald eagles in the US. And they also were dying due to hunting and poisoning, as well as habitat destruction. And the last one, we have the Gulf sturgeon. This is a cat-sized salamander to humpbacked fish. All species play a critical role in larger ecosystem. So Earthjustice brought in 2001 achieved not only expanded protections for the imperial fish, but set the stage for far-reaching benefits for many other endangered species. So that is all for the Endangered Species Act. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can go over the bears. So moving on to some positive news, the victory for bears living in the vast ecosystem of Yellowstone, as the US court ruled on Wednesday that grizzly bears will now be kept federally protected. This means that grizzly bears will not be involved with sport hunting. We thank the decision of the Ninth Circuit Court, a victory of science over politics, ensuring that grizzly bears gather a chance to flourish and recover. By reversing the Trump administration, we were able to save the Yellowstone grizzlies and implement a better and safer home for these wonderful animals. With the hard work of many environmentalists around the world, we were able to see past Trump's destructive tactics and put an end to sport hunting within the Yellowstone community. Andrea Zaccardi, a senior attorney at Central for Biological Diversity, stated, "Hunting these beautiful animals around America's most treasured national park should never be an option again. Personally, I support Andrea's argument because the need to save endangered species should be top priority for people making these crucial decisions that not only impact the future of these species and whether or not they go extinct, but also the future for us humans that need these species to keep the ecosystematic balance in order to survive." Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of those great pieces of information. So important to see about the progress, and big shout out to Earthjustice.
Yes.
Gosh, look at all of the important work that they're doing, and just, we shout them out, but wow, so important. We'll do all that we can, and you guys are just all working so incredibly hard for this. And so we're excited about the progress that's being made. We're so happy about what's going on, the good news for the bears, and we'll continue to work on those other rollbacks for sure. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So Jamie, would you like to share, you're muted right now, but there you go. So Jamie, would you like to talk with us? Symbols are so important. We saw a picture of the bald eagle, and we're thinking about or thinking about what that means to us in this country as Americans. And the idea that bald eagles would be ingesting poisonous things that we are using to grow food or to remove weeds, or, it's unacceptable. So Team 5 and Darren, all and everybody has worked so hard to talk about the importance of getting rid of these very toxic pesticides. And as you guys know, in Oceanside, where I had my pesticide poisoning, unfortunately, there's a tomato field right there. And so they're using so many toxic pesticides that are banned, some of them in over 30 countries. So we're working really hard. Of course, we've reached out to them. Please stop using these toxic pesticides. We've passed an IPM in Oceanside that said basically, and do everything else, please. And also, by the way, PS, don't use these really, really toxic pesticides. And we're working with the County of San Diego to try to get a list of these toxic pesticides that we want off of leased lands. Now, I have to tell you guys, we've hit a roadblock with that. So Ags Weights and Measures in San Diego County is pushing back. So unfortunately, so we know for the health and safety of people, and then also obviously our wildlife, as Catherine was pointing out, and the water, right? Because when these toxic poisonous pesticides are used on our lands and gets into the water, then that's a problem. And we know everything runs to the ocean eventually. So our symbols are very important. And so we're happy to see that the bald eagle is rebounding after DDT is banned, and we need to do more of that. So speaking of symbols, Jamie, I know that you had something that you wanted to share with us in talking about symbols. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. You are going to see a beautiful statue that will appear shortly. Okay, there she is. On May 25th, 2020, the world had changed. That was the day that George Floyd's life was taken. And everyone in the world witnessed that. It caused anger, it caused pain and hurt. So the first thing that happened was people left their homes, put their face masks on, of course, and protested. It was wrong that his life was taken in the hands of police officers, people who were entrusted to protect him. So people all around the world protested, and statements were made like Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, to protest what happened to George Floyd and countless others. The list is very long of victims of police violence. So to make a long story short, go to England, the town of Bristol, which is a seaside community. Last month, the protesters there actually took off a former statue of a man named Edward Colston. Edward Colston was a very rich man in the 18th century. He had contributed lots of money to businesses. He was a philanthropist, but he was also a slave trader. So when the protesters in England saw the statue, the first thing they did was take their anger out on what happened to George Floyd and others. They somehow managed to rock it off of the base and roll it into the ocean. And I actually saw that on television, and I looked at it and I just could not believe my eyes that a slave trader had been rolled into the ocean. Now, what was left was a cement base, as you can see. So there was a protester who thought long and hard about a replacement, and his name is Mark Quinn. So Mark Quinn talked to Jen Reed, who was a protester, and said, would you please stand still for me? I'd like to design a statue of you out of black resin, and it's a lightweight material, and I want to erect it on that cement base. So they went to work and they positioned it and it was photographed and the pictures were sent all over the world. It is symbolic of the Black Lives Matter movement and how it's impacting people around the world. The message is no more, enough. Racial injustice must stop. Now, as a follow-up, after it was erected, the mayor of the town said, well, you know, folks, we're going to have to take it down because we did not go through the legal process to have it erected. So let's take it down, put it away, and have the town vote on the statue and whether or not it should be there. So the mayor is basically going to listen to all voices in the community so they can talk about whether or not the statue should be erected there or somewhere else. But that statue is beautiful. The pictures have been taken and we have the images. So that's making a long-lasting impression. So the message that is sent is we will protest peacefully if we disagree with racial injustice. A fitting statue.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. It is a beautiful statue, and I just, yeah, makes us, yeah, a symbol. Thank you so much. I love it. And, you know, we'll hear from you next week, Jamie, about the vote on how that goes.
Let's see what happens.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I'm so happy about that. So thank you guys. You're so amazing. Janice, would you like to say something?
Yes, so I hope that everyone stays safe during this time and practice social distancing and self-quarantine to help protect yourselves and others. However, while you are staying safe and social distancing, you can visit the Cleaner for Kids website and take a look at all of our 6 teams to find information that might not have been mentioned in this panel discussion. And while you're at our website, make sure you take a look at petitions, resources, information, contests, challenges, and community service and internship opportunities. If you missed a webinar, just know we record each one and post them on our YouTube channel, Cleaner for Kids, along with informational videos. So make sure you subscribe to get notifications to stay informed. Also check out our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook where we post, retweet, and inform whenever we can. If you'd like to stay on the call, the current panelists can stay on to be asked questions or be informed by your knowledge. For those hopping off the call, have a great night, and we hope to see you next Thursday, July 23rd.
Oh, thank you so much. I have tears. You guys are just amazing. Thank you so much. We have the best world, and we have the best world. We have the best youth board in the entire world. Let's just say that right now. So, and of course, you know, best social justice commissioner in the world, of course. And then our board member, Jay Kloppenstein, who is not here, but he is here. He will be hopping on the call in a minute with us. And of course, we have Dr. Emily Catalan, our water expert, and Julie Morisseau, who is an architect and thinks about ways that we can be using less toxic materials and taking those out of buildings and supplies that we use in building. So yeah. And then we have Jim Wong, of course, that helps us with climate action and Team One, and it's going to make some great, has offered to make a great commercial for us with Darren, who does video. Anyway, and we have Dr. Sarah Jean Royer, which I'm excited for her to present on how greenhouse gases are emitted from plastic. So that's going to be really important, and that'll be coming up. She's done a lot of important research that was published in the BBC. So we'll be talking with her. We'll also have on, you know, Oceana, Surfrider, all of our good friends from the important environmental organizations. Jay Kloppenstein can represent North County Climate Change Alliance as well and talk about plastics. So many great things. So thank you so much for being here. And as Janice said, we will stay on the call for a minute and, well, for a little while, and be able to talk with you. So thank you again so much, and have a great night. So I'll go ahead and go to the panelists if you would, the attendees. And if you'd like to stay on, then I'll promote you to a panelist. And I'll start working on doing that now and get some help from John Botworth. So he'll come over here and help me do that. So as I do that, why don't I have some wrapping up comments real quick? So Darren, what would you like to say?
I just have to say thank you to everyone for attending these and just wanting to stay informed, because I know it's kind of a tedious task to just be informed on everything, but hopefully we have helped you with that. And I don't know, I feel very inspired by the people who come every week and are just excited to learn and all that.
Oh, absolutely. And we heard from Yusuf Miller tonight, sometimes people have meetings at the same time. So Darren, thank you so much. And Chelsea as well. She'll be doing our video editing, and to others as well. And thank you. Shout out to all of our great interns, by the way. Thank you for Catherine for all that great information. Thank you for Kirsten and so many of our fabulous interns.